is Valley News Live at 4.
Good afternoon, everyone. Fargo firefighters say a deck is a total loss after a fire on the city's south side. The call came in around 2:30 this afternoon for a fire in the 5300 block of University Drive South. Scanner traffic indicated that people were using a garden hose and buckets of water to put out the flames and that the wind was causing that fire to spread. Officials say the fire was contained to the deck with only light smoke damage to the home. Firefighters are still trying to figure out what caused that fire. Stick with Valley News Live for the latest on this developing story. We're on our second day of record-breaking heat across the valley. Let's get a first look at our weather now with Chief Meteorologist Hutch Johnson. Hutch.
Stacy, thanks so much. A good afternoon, everyone. As we head into the evening hours, changes are in the offing. Another great day, and records fell hard today. 60s in both Fargo and in Grand Forks. But changes are already starting to take place in our northern counties. Take a look at your high temperatures today. Rolla, the peak temperature 37 there, and it was nearly 70 today in Sisseton. Here is a look at temperatures across the region. No, Roseau is not 20 below. I think there might be a problem with the sensor there. Oofta, that's cold. Anyway, 67 for Sisseton, and right now Langdon, cold air moving in. The white line is the freezing line. That is a cold pool of air. Wind there is from the northwest, and that's coming our way. So temperatures that'll be significantly colder in the offing. Here's a look at Devil's Lake now as that cold air punching southward, bringing along some clouds, and even north of there, some snow. Temperatures slipping into the 30s this evening as winds become northwesterly and gusty. It looks like a cold one out there. And in Grand Forks tonight, we'll be in the mid-30s by bedtime. Tomorrow, a first alert weather day. Accumulating slush is in the forecast. I'll have the latest in your hour-by-hour forecast on the timing and track of all of that mess coming up here in just a few moments.
Poor Roseau, man. 80-degree difference between Roseau and Baudette
Something
up
has
there.
to be wrong. I'm just going out on a limb right now.
Thanks, Hutch.
Yeah.
Here's a look at today's top 4 at 4. NDSU is investigating how decals promoting a hate group ended up on the doors of a prominent building on campus. In an email to students, school officials say the decals were found at 8:30 in the morning at Menard Hall and taken down within 15 minutes. NDSU says they do not allow discrimination or the placement of such material on school property. The decals are the latest in a string of recent racially charged incidents on NDSU's campus. Fargo Cass Public Health is now inviting people in Phase 1C priority groups to its vaccine clinics. This includes essential workers and people ages 16 to 64 that have an increased risk for COVID-19. You can find a link to the sign-up form on valleynewslive.com. Just click on this story. We'll have more updates on the COVID-19 vaccine rollout across the valley coming up in just a minute. The Fargo Diocese says the Johnson & Johnson vaccine can be used as a last resort. There's been controversy over the vaccine as the Catholic Church is concerned about its potential use of abortion-derived cell lines in its production. Last week, 2 Catholic leaders issued a statement saying that when ethically irreproachable vaccines aren't available, it is acceptable for Catholics to receive the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Paul Braun with the Fargo Diocese agreed with that statement, saying, quote, "Being vaccinated can be an act of charity that serves the common good." Johnson & Johnson says there is no fetal tissue in its vaccine. With more than 85% of North Dakota's long-term care residents now fully vaccinated against COVID-19, Governor Doug Burgum announced today that the state will shift from state-driven guidance to locally driven decisions in long-term care facilities. More than 90% of long-term care residents have received at least 1 dose of the vaccine, and while more than 85% of residents and 49% of staff have received both doses. This progress means 2 executive orders will expire on Friday, including one that requires assisted living facilities to conduct routine COVID-19 testing of residents and staff. As the vaccine rollout continues, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum and First Lady Catherine Burgum got the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccination today. It happened this morning at the Bismarck Event Center at the Bismarck-Burley Public Health's drive-through vaccine clinic. Burgum became eligible now that vaccinations are being provided for individuals in priority group Phase 1C, which includes government workers. Meanwhile, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is expanding eligibility as the state nears its goal of vaccinating 70% of people 65 and older. The announcement comes several weeks ahead of schedule after the state was allocated more doses from the federal government. Starting tomorrow, nearly 2 million more Minnesotans will be eligible, including those in Phase 1B Tier 2. That includes people with specific health conditions and food processing plant workers. The next phase, Tier 3, includes those 45 and older with at least one underlying condition and 16 plus with 2 or more conditions. It also includes several categories of frontline workers like airport staff, childcare, and food service. Today, Governor Walz discussed the possibility of opening up sporting events to in-person audiences this spring and summer.
We were on yesterday with all the major sports teams across Minnesota. And again, the state tournaments are coming up, and the idea that I want to see parents and grandparents and student bodies see their kids play, see their friends play, and their children play in a state tournament is really important to us.
Governor Walz says he's confident the summer sports will be open to audiences if the federal vaccine efforts continue to speed up. The Pfizer vaccine appears to neutralize the variant first identified in Brazil and the UK. Scientists developed an engineered version of the variants and tested them against blood samples taken from 15 people 2 to 4 weeks after they were given the second dose of the vaccine. They found that the neutralizing ability was roughly the same when compared to a previous, less contagious version of the virus from last year. However, when they tested the variant first identified in South Africa, they found the neutralization was robust but lower. To stay on top of the latest COVID vaccine-related information, use our VNL vaccine tracker. Visit our website or open your phone camera and point it at the QR code on your screen, then tap the link that pops up. Democrats are pushing ahead with a nearly $2 trillion COVID relief package, and they're doing it without the votes of Republican lawmakers. Skylar Henry has details from Capitol Hill.
The House is expected to vote on President Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill Wednesday morning.
Once the Rules Committee takes it up, they'll send it to the floor and we'll pass it, hopefully with some Republican votes, although, that remains to be seen.
Republicans have unanimously opposed the bill, every step of the way saying it's too large and untargeted.
It didn't have to be this way. We could have had a bill that was a fraction of the cost of this one that could have gotten bipartisan approval and support.
The White House is still pushing for GOP support, pointing to public polls showing a majority of Americans, including Republican voters, support the plan.
Getting checks to almost 160 million Americans, money to reopen schools, money to vaccinate people. Since when is that a Democratic idea?
President Biden is highlighting the need for financial relief, meeting with a small business owner who benefited from the Paycheck Protection Program loans.
The first thing that we did was we took all of our at-risk employees and we sent them home and we paid them through that entire process. That first wave of PPP loans was very helpful to allow us to do that.
This comes as the CDC issued new guidelines advising fully vaccinated people can now gather in small groups indoors without masks or social distancing. It also includes unvaccinated people as long as they are low risk and from the same household.
This is the beginning of the next several months of slowly enabling more privileges to get back to a new normal.
The CDC is still recommending no gatherings between unvaccinated households, no gatherings in public, and avoid non-essential travel. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The CDC also issued a new warning about the risk of the coronavirus for obese Americans. According to a new study, nearly 80% of people who were hospitalized, placed on a ventilator, or died from COVID-19 were overweight. A World Health Organization study finds that nearly 1 in 3 women have experienced physical or sexual violence. It's the largest ever study of the prevalence of violence against women. The figures track a period from 2010 to 2018. It doesn't cover the impact of the pandemic, and studies have shown an increase in domestic violence against women during the coronavirus lockdown in many places. As we enter spring break season, some families might have plans to head out of town, but what does that mean when you come back? Will your kids be allowed back in the classroom? The Fargo School District says they're abiding by Fargo Cass Public Health and ND Department of Health guidelines. Currently, there are no quarantine requirements when returning from travel. It is recommended to get tested and monitor your health when you get back. West Fargo also does not require students to quarantine if they travel. Moorhead school leaders say students should not travel out of state, but if they do, they recommend quarantining and testing within 3 to 5 days of your return. The Bison are back at the Fargo Dome this weekend, taking on Illinois State on Saturday. The pregame show starts at 1:30. Kickoff is set for 2:30. You can catch all the action on KVLY. Coming up, as the city of Minneapolis braces for more protests, we'll tell you why jury selection in the trial surrounding George Floyd's death could take weeks.
The sun will come out, but it may be hard to see tomorrow. First Alert Weather Day has been called, and coming up, your hour-by-hour forecast will tell you whether you're going to need just a broom, a leaf blower, or a snow shovel. That might come in handy. Some may need a blower. Details coming up right after this.